Excuse me. Wow. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Brian Martinez. I'm the MiSec Lansing director, and I'm excited to have our speaker here tonight, Andrew Rathburn. Before we get started, I do want to mention a little bit about our organization, and I also want to mention that if you are presently on this call, you are being recorded. If you do not want to be recorded, you're free to drop off. But by being here, you're basically consenting to being recorded. All right. So MiSec is a new no barrier to entry group whose primary purpose is to promote information security in Michigan. We do so by promoting other organizations and their respective meetups, such as ISACA, ISC Squared, ISSA, Cloud Security Alliance, and even Automotive Security Group Detroit, to name a good small handful. We also promote InfoSec in Michigan by providing support to one another, especially those entering or attempting to enter our industry, and by providing networking opportunities and educational opportunities such as this discussion tonight. We have 6 chapters in MiSec across the state. We have Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, Detroit, Jackson, Lansing, and Southfield. All of our groups typically meet on a second weekday of the month. So for instance, Ann Arbor is typically Monday, Jackson is on Tuesday, of course Detroit and Lansing tonight on Wednesday, and Southfield and Grand Rapids on Thursday. Later in the month, on the last week of the month, we always have a social when we meet in real life. That's kind of fallen apart a little bit here now that we've been remote. Check the Slack for any details about getting together for a virtual drink or two. Let's see here. Almost all of our talks are live streamed and or recorded, as I mentioned, and they can be found on our YouTube channel, which is called MiSec Group, one word. We always welcome new speakers or suggestions or topics for speakers. Please feel I can't talk tonight. Please feel free to reach out and let me know if you have any interest there. You can find me on Slack or on Twitter, or any other number of ways, LinkedIn, any of our other chapter leaders as well. Speaking of Slack, we do have a very active Slack community. We're now over 800 members as part of Slack, with about 150 daily active users. You're always going to find a good conversation, a solid piece of advice. Every once in a while, you'll find an argument. That's just the nature of having, a large community. Let's see here. If you aren't on Slack, you can find a link on our website, misec.us. You can even stay apprised of which chapters are holding remote socials on our website there. We do have an events calendar. We'll do Slack. Look for us on Twitter. MiSec. Please mute yourself. Shoot. Let's see here. There we go. I should have mentioned that as well. Thank you. You can look for us on Twitter under the handle MiSec. With all of that said, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Rathburn, who is going to present on CAPE and Timeline Explorer, and I'll let him say a little bit about himself and whatever else he wants to add. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Brian. My name's Andrew Rathbun. A little bit of background about me. I've been doing digital forensics for probably the last about 4.5 years now. I used to be a cop at Michigan State University Police Department. I was on the road for about 3 years, and I was a detective for 4 years. Excuse me, I was on the road for 4 years and was a detective for 3 years. Those 3 years, I was doing digital forensics investigations. And after that, I worked for the feds at HHS OIG. And I did that for about a year and a day. And then now I work at Kroll, where I'm a senior associate doing incident response and digital forensics day in and day out. So I do work for Kroll, and I am going to be talking about a Kroll tool, CAPE, Kroll Artifact Parser and Extractor. I'm not here as a sales pitch. I'm just here as a fan of it. I use it every day. Same with Timeline Explorer. So this is purely just for demonstration informational purposes. Not here to sales pitch or anything like that. So with that being said, and if anyone has any questions, at any time, feel free to just hit me up in the chat, or if there is a pending question and I'm not seeing it, can one of you just let me know? Or we can just do questions at the end, whatever you guys do. So without further ado, I will present my screen. I believe it'll be this one. Okay, can you guys see my VM here?
Yes.
Okay. The resolution good for everybody? Okay. So this is what CAPE is. Like I said, CAPE is a curl artifact parser and extractor. It's basically a triage tool. So it's highly customizable. It's open source. Anyone can contribute to it. It's pretty fantastic. I use it day in and day out. So there's two different aspects to CAPE. There's targets and there's modules. Targets are basically a fancy way to say, hey, these files exist at this location, copy it out and put it where I tell you to put it. Modules are going to be your parsers, and anyone can make a module. You can do it with a third-party app. You can use one of Eric's tools, and I'll go more into that as well. So this is the GUI of CAPE. There's also a command line version, which is how you could scale it, in your enterprise or during an engagement or whatever. But we're going to start with the GUI, and we'll touch a little bit on the command line, but you'll see where they tie into each other. So if you've never seen CAPE before, this is what it looks like. I'm a dark mode enthusiast, so one of my favorite aspects is that you can change the theme of it and make it dark mode, so that's great. On the left here, we have targets. You enable them, and then you can see all these different targets here. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So like I said, anybody can contribute to these, but there's one that I run pretty much every day, and that is CAPE triage. So basically, like I said, targets say, hey, this artifact exists in this location. I want you to go grab it. So you can customize that. You can basically make like a recipe. I want iTunes backup files. I want Google Drive artifacts, log files. Or you can do these complex ones like CAPE triage, where it will point to other targets. So the file system target, registry hives target, event logs, scheduled task, evidence of execution, all these other artifacts. This gives you basically everything you need to do to get 90% of the answers that you need in an IR investigation. So this is typically what we use for everything at Kroll. So going back to the target here, you can see this is just pointing to filesystem.tcape. So what does that mean, you say? Then you go to the file system, tcape, and then you get a little more granular and see what it's going to be picking out. It's going to be picking out the MFT, log file, and all these other files. So I'm telling CAPE to go to all those locations specified and all those targets and go grab those files and go put it where I tell it to. Now, that's fine and dandy, but we need something to interpret it, right? Because we don't want to just grab a bunch of registry files, event logs, and just not have anything that we can actually actionable output. So that's where this easy parser module comes in. There are a lot of other modules too, but we'll just start with this one. If any of you are familiar with Eric Zimmerman, for one, he wrote this tool, and he's also written a bunch of other tools. And this basically runs all of those tools together, all at once. So I'm effectively telling CAPE to grab all of these files and then run the related parsers against those files and give me output that I can then make use of in Timeline Explorer, which I will then cover a little bit later. So the only, like I said, anyone can make modules and you can use it. You can make them for any third-party app. The only files or the only programs that it comes with is Eric's tools, because he wrote CAPE and he wrote those tools, so those come with CAPE. Any other ones, you need to provide the binary for it and put it in the appropriate folder. So I will quick demonstrate what that looks like here. So we're going to be in the bottom half here. So when you get CAPE, this is what it looks like. You have your targets, you have your modules. So all those targets that I showed you in the GUI, they all reside here, and they're just .tcape files, which you can then open in your favorite text editor here. So let's just do Discord. So this is basically what they look like. And like I said, anyone can create one for any artifact. any third party, anything on a Windows system. And then, so for modules, in the binary folder here, this is where you put any third-party executables. So, for instance, there's one, if you've ever used the everything tool, I actually put together this one, everything target here, saying, hey, this is where the .db is for everything.db. Here's the run history, the search history, go grab that. But then there's also a corresponding module to where it will run this tool provided by Void Tools that will then convert the everything.db into an actionable file listing that you can then import into everything. Basically, everything is a file system enumeration tool. Well, that's what the attackers use it for, but it's actually a Windows search replacement. It's actually a really amazing tool. If you guys don't use it, go Google it, go download it, use it. It's amazing. Don't ever use Windows search ever again. Yeah, so that's pretty much that module. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quick run Cape Triage against this machine. This is just a VM. This is where I do all my research. So a lot of these folders you see on the desktop is just, like DC++. I did it for, this is me testing the DC++ one that I put together. So this is just my VM. There's not going to be much, but I'm at least going to show you what I do every day when I'm analyzing an endpoint. Now, like I said, you can scale this across an enterprise using whatever EDR solution you use, and that's where the command line is going to come in. So what I like to do is, I know I'm going to be doing my C drive, so I'm basically going to tell Cape to that my target is this VM that I'm on right now. So look in the C drive for all the targets that I'm going to choose, which I'm only going to choose one, which is Cape Triage. Now, my output, where do I want you to put those targets? I'm just going to do desktop. We'll just do Cape testing. I don't know, MiSec, right? Let's do MiSec. So I always add T out for target out. So that's where I want my target files to go. And then I will just copy this over here, and I'll do an M out folder for my module output. So what I'm telling Cape here to do is I want you to run the Cape Triage target against my VM, grab all this stuff, and then I want you to run Eric's tools and give me all the output in CSV format. And I'm a nerd. I like debug and trace. So when the command line's going, there's just a whole bunch of gibberish going on, and that's how I know it's working. That's just my preference. Now, as you can see here on the bottom, if you were noticing, as I build out my recipe, for lack of a better word, you can see the command line. You can see how it's magically populating below. So this is how you can construct, again, your recipe, for lack of a better term, of what you want to do at scale. And then you would just copy this command line out. Pretty cool. So without further ado, I'm going to run Cape. One other thing I should do real quick. When you're using Cape, you want to sync with GitHub. So you can do this from the command line, or you can do it from the GUI here. Basically, all it does is just pull up a little command line to make sure there's no updated targets. There won't be any because I just did this earlier today. But you can go to Eric Zimmerman's Cape files and see what targets are there, what modules are there, what pending pull requests there are. You can add your own on there. So if this is of any interest to you, and if anyone ever wants to make a target, more than happy to help you through it. Modules, if you're good at like coding and PowerShell and all that, I'm not that good at that stuff. So putting together that everything one I needed some help, some hand holding, but it's pretty cool, some of the ones that people have made on here. So anyone can do it. It's just take a poke around. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to quick execute this, and I'll just show you what it looks like when you run Cape. We're not going to watch this. It's only going to take about probably 230 seconds, I think, for this particular one. There's not a lot of artifacts on here. Like I said, I just use this for testing, for making my own targets in Cape, and any other artifact research. Like I'm working on some of the browsers that aren't covered in Cape, so like Opera, Brave, and Vivaldi, if there's even artifacts left behind, since they're more privacy focused. But effectively the output that you're going to get is there's my T out and there's my M out. And I'll leave this in the background just so you can watch it go. So T out is where all my target output is. And so it recreates all the directories. So the C drive, you can see my Windows folder, prefetch, shim cache. System32 is going to have my event logs. It's going to have all my registry files here. They're all right here. So it's literally just a fancy copy, effectively. Scheduled task was in there. I frankly don't know what that is, but it's all here. And so all of Eric's tools are going to run against all of this output, and that's going to be output into this mout folder. So what I do every day is, where is these tools? Easy tools. Where's Timeline Explorer? Thought I had that up. There we go. And so I don't get blinded. All right, so what I like to do, I'm using Directory Opus. If you guys have never used this program before, it's the greatest. I could talk all day about it. But I'm basically putting this in flat view. So all these folders, all the files are just listed here, so I don't have to go in and out, in and out. So what I like to do is I like to do flat view, sort of on size. And let me get Timeline Explorer here. So I like to grab the MFT, event log output. Looks like there's some prefetch. I grabbed shim cache output, the unassociated file entries. That's going to be where your executables are. Your bad executables, I should say. Automatic destinations, link output, and then your shell bags here. So I like to literally grab all of this and throw it into Timeline Explorer. Of course, the bigger the CSV, it's going to take a little bit for it to load. So earlier today, actually, I just put a 2.2 gig, I think it was event log output into Timeline Explorer, and it handled it well. It yelled at me anything over 1,000 megabytes was not going to work, but it worked fine. So, and then I also added 30 others on top of that after that, so it handled it just fine. But in the meantime, you can see what Cape's doing here. It's all this output, you can look at it. It's in the console log.txt once this is all done, but looks like it's copying out internet history. Yep. And you can see it's deduping. It does dedupe count on the top. Tells you how many are left, the percentage for this particular artifact. Now it's doing amcache, as you can see. It's running amcache parser. And if you don't do debug and trace, it doesn't look this crazy. But like I said, I like to make sure that it's actually doing something, because if you don't do that and it's chewing on a 4 gig security.evtx file, you're just kind of sitting there for like 20 minutes just wondering, okay, did it freeze? I just like to see this. So call me crazy. Going through the MFT. Okay, now it's starting to load.
See, I would like to agree with you that more debug data, the better.
Yeah, exactly, and right. And if I didn't do debug and trace, and I do come in, I do have an issue. Well, now, when I go to Eric and he's like, "Oh, what happened?" He's going to tell me to run debug. I'm like, okay, well now I got to start over and do it again and hope I can reproduce the error. Whereas I can just get ahead of that on the front end and just, it doesn't hurt anything, So yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one. So we loaded all that output into Timeline Explorer. One of the new features I was talking to Kyle earlier about is this tab. He made it to where you can search for tabs. You can quick jump to one, because before that you had to go left and all the way to the right, and depending on my shell bags artifacts, when I'm analyzing an endpoint, I sometimes have to add 50, 60, 80 different shell bags. So, if there's 40 users using a computer, there's an NT-user.dat, there's a user class.dat. So 40 users times 2, there's 80 CSVs I got to look at. So it was a pain. And plus they're really long, as you can see here. The file name's really long. So if you have 80 of those, clicking to the left, to the right. So this was a very welcome feature, as well as the Control W, just like closing a tab. You can just close a tab just whoop, like that. So that was nice. I'm glad he did that. However, I'm glad I should not have done that, because now I just closed ones that I want to look at. So I think they were these two. So anyways, I'll make this bigger. So I love Timeline Explorer. It's the reason why I started using it was because I was opening 400 megabyte MFT output, I should say. And Excel was yelling at me. It was failing. It was giving me some stupid errors, and having to change the time stamps in Excel would be some massive string of numbers, and then I'd have to convert it every time, and then I'd have to do that for every single spreadsheet. Whereas you can just change that here, date time format, however you want it, and this is exactly how I use it at work right here. I don't have to do any work. It saves me so much time. The complex filtering is awesome on here too. So let's just say I want to look for a file that's in the Andrew. So this is on contains. So contains Andrew. I'm seeing the word. Did I see current? Okay. Has the name current in it. Okay, I'm just doing this off the fly here. So, and is also a bin. There you go. Let's say this is something I'm looking for. Eureka, I found it. From here, then I would timeline it. And, that's just as simple as copying out the artifacts and just putting in whatever format your timeline's in. But what's nice is you can you see that my filter that I did in those columns, you can see it on the bottom left. And let's say for whatever reason this is bad, okay? And I want to know, well, we'll do this one because it's a little bit older. Actually, we'll do this one. Let's say this is bad, and I want to know what happened like before it and after it. So I can just turn this filter off. I should probably sort on created. That might help. And then right here it is. So I can see what happened before it, what happened after it. So it's just a nice convenient feature, and then I can just re-enable it just like that. I can also get rid of each one of these elements. I get rid of Andrew. And I guess I probably should have got rid of the other one. So there we go. You can also edit the filter in a different way here. Hit edit filter on the bottom right. And you'll get a little dialog that pops up whenever it feels like it. There we go. Add a condition, let's just do, whoops, not file name. Let's just do is directory. Sure. There we go. So directories with the name current in it. I'm just shooting at the hip here for examples, but you can see basically what you can do. If you actually know what you're looking for, and if there's actually evidence on here, you can do a lot of good things with this. For like event logs, I'm always looking. There's going to be no 7045s on here. Well, there might be. Who knows? Oops. Okay, there are. Yeah, so this is basically what the output looks like. Let's see. One of the other things that I do pretty often here is when you hover over any of these column headers, there's a little button that appears. So I use this a lot to just basically enumerate what is in that column. And I'll actually do that a lot for when I'm looking at an endpoint for like PowerShell. Because in this payload column here, I'll just take a quick look like, okay, wow, hold on a second. A lot of these look pretty similar. I'll look for that one that stands out because, the one that's either really long or the one that's really short, because a lot of these are normal. Not talking about PowerShell, but just in general. So it's just nice to be able to look at this without having to double click on each one. So that's just something I do. And then like for event ID, I'll click on this. If I just want my 21s, 25s, 23s for RDP, and here they are right there. Nice thing about this versus Excel is if you saw here, see how it's updating in real time? With Excel, you're going to have to click whatever ones you want and then hit OK. At least with this, I know, okay, not really a lot of RDP activity. I can already tell, okay, it's in my time frame or it's not my time frame, right? Obviously, this isn't a suspect machine, but I can just take a quick look based on what has showed up just based on me enabling it right now. And you can just keep going, if there's any log clearing, like 1102, which there is apparently, or maybe, no, it's 1102 in a different. So this channel is going to be, application security, system, and then all these other ones that there are. So, and that's the thing too. You can also just go like this and just see, okay, well, is there terminal service? Yep. LSM here. Yep. Just filter on that, or application. I just want to see application logs, or hey, I want to see application logs and bits client. So. Without going too much into each artifact, that's pretty much kind of the gist of Timeline Explorer. There's a couple other things. Actually, I'll show you a couple other things here. You can group by column. This is actually pretty cool. So let me close this. So let's say you want to group on channel, okay? So I just threw channel. I just grabbed the channel header and put it up, dragged it up here. So now everything is grouped on channel. You can see all the different ones. This is basically just all your different event logs is effectively what I'm doing right here. Come on. Oh, wait. There we go. Now let's say I want to, actually, yeah, this will be a cool example. So channel event ID. So here you go. So within the Windows, let's do one that actually we care about. Here we go. TSLSM. So within the TSLSM, there's 21s, 22s, 23s, 32s, 34s, 41s, 42s, and 54s, that many each. And then boom, there they are. Now you could go an even further level, like let's do, where's date? Time created, here we go. Let's go even further than that. So now we have, this many 21 events on the 17th. Here they are. Pretty cool. And you can customize this, let's say you want to go back, we'll ungroup, and now let's do different, okay? So these are all the artifacts that we have TSLSM on these days, regardless of what they are. So you can see here all the different ones. So you can customize this. So it's a nice way to go granular with the data. And you can do this literally with any output you put in here, because your columns are, that's what you do. You just grab the columns and you just throw them up there. So, this is prefetch, this is your event logs, this is your MFT, shim cache. I don't know, I guess I don't really know why you do it for shim cache, but you can see the application, depending on what output you're looking at. Very useful for event logs. That's probably the most useful application of it. Let's see. So that's a really cool feature. What else?
Have you used the tagging functionality all that much to kind of like tag things and then build a timeline later?
Tagging, no. From what I understand, tagging only works for certain file types, and I'm not familiar with exactly what file types. Maybe you know that answer, but I don't. Typically what I do is I have an Excel spreadsheet that is like my timeline for the engagement that I'm working. And if I find something that's relevant here, I will just take this data and I'll just copy it out into that, proprietary format. So that's typically what I do. But if I were to do something else, then maybe that would be a little more applicable for me. But the tagging for me in Timeline Explorer like isn't applicable, so I don't really know the answer to that question. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Is there any questions at this point in time about CAPE, which you can see it took 339 seconds to run to copy all that stuff, what I told it to do, and run the parsers. So in 339 seconds, I have everything I need to get 90% of my answers for this particular endpoint. Pretty cool. Sometimes it takes longer. If there's a ton of internet history, that's more of a target thing. I don't think there's any parsers for internet history, I don't believe. But, if you got a few gigs of Internet Explorer history or Chrome history or Firefox history, it's just going to naturally take longer to copy that stuff out. When I see this taking a long time is when you have your multiple 4 gig, security.evtx files, because the evtx ECMD just takes a while to chew through that, which is, makes sense. But this isn't bad at all. This is very, very quick, down and dirty, everything you need. And, for us, if we need anything else beyond that, that's when we may ask for an image, or ask for, go live on the system or what have you, to get whatever answers that everything that I'm showing you here can't answer. In your AMCache, you have your SHA-1 for every single executable. So if you have something that looks shady, run that through VirusTotal, gives you leads, gets you answers. I won't, I'm not going to make this a mini, Forensics 500 class and, explain the artifacts. If anyone doesn't know what these artifacts are and are interested, I'm more than happy to provide some links. Highly recommend 13 Cube's YouTube channel. He goes very in depth for each of these artifacts, and it was actually a very huge help for me when I was studying for the GCFE. So I think that's about it for CAPE and Timeline Explorer. I think with my remaining time here, I don't think I'll be the whole hour. I wasn't really planning on that. I'll just go in detail. Actually, before I go into something else, does anyone have any questions about CAPE or Timeline Explorer? Or want me to have a question about something they saw, want me to go a little bit further into it? Want to see the command line? Want to see what goes into making a target? Anything like that?
Yeah, I don't have as much of a question, but I've also been a huge fan of CAPE for that kind of rapid acquisition of targets, and for me, also using its ability that you can acquire all that evidence and you can put it into like a zip file.
Yep.
Which is really helpful when you're giving like a script to a client that has to basically run this tool, where you can basically build the command line for them.
Yes.
Hand it off to them, give them the tool, they run it, it automatically creates the zip file, then they send that to you.
Yep. VHDX, VHD, and zip. I should have showed that. So that's right here on the target side. I typically do none just because that's what I'm used to. But yeah, you absolutely can do that. The base name here, and as you type it in, you can see the command line there. It's pretty awesome. So thanks for that.
Yeah. And then, do you know, is there a target now for actually acquiring memory, or is that still on the module side?
I think there's volatility ones right here. So here's a bunch of volatility ones. I don't know. Let's see. I don't think there's memory targets, no, but there's volatility modules. So you just have to double click on each one of these. Grab text. So it would just require you just put that executable in the bin folder. Might as well show where that is. Where's CAPE? There we go. Modules, bin, put whatever binaries in here to make the modules work. So you just need to put that in there. But it looks like they got quite a few. There's a couple of these PS scan. A couple of these I recognize from 508.
Sweet.
Yeah, so it looks like you would already have to have the memory image because it looks like it's post-process. So I don't think there's memory acquisition with CAPE, at least from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, you'd have to probably make your own target, put the whatever memory acquisition tool you're going to use in there, and then have it basically pull it.
Yeah,
which is
actually just might be. What's that?
It's usually a time. It's gonna bloat your file pretty big because the memory images are always gonna be like 8 to 16 gigs today. So
yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, like I said, if there's a third-party program and there's some sort of forensic, application to it, you can make a module for it. RegRipper, if you didn't want to use Eric's tool, there's RegRipper. Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's pretty simple to make targets for. If you see any artifacts that don't exist, you can make it yourself. If you just have a bunch of third-party tools on your computer, and you don't see a target for it, you can just make it, because you never know. You never know what could help. I always, being former law enforcement, I think of like the child exploitation cases. I make all these targets for like just the most ridiculous, third-party applications. Admittedly, who's ever going to need for these, basically. But you just never know. You never know if some sicko somewhere uses Ace Text, as a Windows clipboard replacement, and that's where everything they've copy pasted for the last year is residing. You just never know. That could be the difference in a case. I highly doubt it will someday, but you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So that's just kind of my mindset with making some of these targets. And I just think it's fun because I'm not a coder. I don't have that background. I would love to be. I don't have the time for it. This kind of makes me feel like I'm, contributing something to a project that, a lot of people use. So if anyone has any questions about making targets or modules, I can help you more so on the target side. Module, probably lose me pretty quick, but I'm more than happy to guide you in the right direction. Is there any other questions, comments about CAPE, Timeline Explorer? Any questions? Why would I use this? How do I use this type thing? So if not, then I will go into a couple other things that I'm involved in. So I am a contributor to About DFIR. If none of you have heard of that before, in the digital forensics incident response world, there's kind of two websites that are kind of like content aggregators, for lack of a better term. There's this one, and there's DFIR.training, ran by Brett Shavers. And this one I contribute to, and recently in the last couple of months, if you ever want to revisit this topic of CAPE or Timeline Explorer, I actually put together really in-depth guide, and I use GIFs. I love GIFs. They're easy to make with ShareX. Highly recommend it. But basically, I'll go to page 2 here. It goes a lot more in depth than what I went in today, but I mean, you could see basically what I just showed you. It exists on this page 24/7. Basically, I go through, okay, what can you do with CAPE? Okay, here's how you would do it. I demonstrate it in the GIF, and by the end of this, you should be pretty comfortable using CAPE. Same thing with Timeline Explorer. We'll go to page 2 of this because that's where all the fun is. So same thing, if you ever want to revisit Timeline Explorer, this goes into a lot more in-depth than what I went. And if you ever have any questions about it, feel free to hit me up anytime. You guys know how to reach me. But this is always on About DFIR's homepage, Tools and Artifacts, Tools, CAPE Timeline Explorer. I'm currently working on guides for every single Eric tool, so I'm working on Registry Explorer right now. So hopefully sometime, thanks Lisa, appreciate it. Hopefully sometime, maybe in the next year or so. I got a kid, so I don't have a lot of free time, but hopefully in the next year or so I'll have a guide for, each one of Eric's tools. And then after that, I'll see what other tools are out there that need to cover. The nice thing about this is I use CAPE every day, but making this guide, I learned things. So that's why I made this guide, is because I try to cater it towards, Joe Button Pusher, who doesn't know a single thing about command line. If by the end of looking at that guide, if they feel a little more comfortable, maybe the barrier of entry has been lowered quite a bit for CAPE, then, you know, I've done my job. I consider it a success. Same thing for Timeline Explorer. You know, I'm not going to be upset if you don't want to use Timeline Explorer, but I just want you to know about it and how it's catered for you as a forensic examiner. If you live in Excel, I would highly recommend trying out Timeline Explorer and check out that guide too, because like I said, it goes into a lot more in depth than what I was able to today. So there's a lot of other stuff on about DFIR. If there's ever anything that I'm missing, please let me know. And if you want a sticker, fill out this form. I'll send you some stickers. I don't know where they are. I think they're down there, but I'll send you a sticker. There's a lot of, we're actually working on making the challenges and CTFs a little more robust. I got a guy who's working on it. So that'll get better here in the near future. All the digital forensic certifications and training that's out there is going to be in this tab here. A lot of scholarships. That's a little outdated. I need to get back on that. Jobs. There's a lot of jobs. I add multiple all throughout the week. You can sort by date, employer, location, all that. So if that interests you, just so you know that exists. Let's go back here. Resources. This is something I put together. I believe it was earlier this year. So if you guys use like Feedly or any other RSS feeds, and you want to start following more DFIR people, just download this, import it into Feedly, and it's everything that you need to follow all the major players in DFIR without having to do your own research. So I did all the hard work for you. Just import it and go from there. Another thing, social media. This is one that's a really good resource that I send to people whenever they're looking, okay, where do I hang out to try and learn more? Where do I just idle? A lot of places to idle here. Discord servers, forums, Google groups. If you're doing the law enforcement type, you know, mobile forensics analysis, data recovery, I mean, Google group it's the way to go. LinkedIn has some, but they're not, it's more professional networking naturally, because that's what LinkedIn's all about. Not so much like forensic talk goes on there from what I've seen. I should get rid of Peerless because they actually just folded. Reddit's a great resource for everything. I'm sure you guys all know that. Slack channels, some Twitter, hashtags to follow, and then right here, 13Cube. If you're more interested in like the Windows endpoint forensic artifacts, that's where you got to be. You got to watch those videos. And then there's the forensic lunch. Another one that's pretty cool is tool testing. So if you're looking for any sort of images to test, actually my coworker here, Josh Hickman, he's got his Android and iOS images here. Some Mac images. I think there's some memory images here. Some of the NIST ones. So it's basically just an aggregation of all the open source images that are out there for you to run whatever tools you wish against. So highly recommend that. And then you've already seen this tools menu. I keep this pretty up to date on a weekly basis. If you're looking for blog posts for Windows artifacts, iOS, Android, that's all going to be here. So Windows, iOS, and there's a couple other too, but those are kind of the main ones, obviously the most popular. So that is pretty much about DFIR in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions? Lisa, I saw you had, you've been to the site before. Appreciate the comment. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they think, oh, you guys are missing this, or hey, I have an idea to make it better, or anything like that? Any questions? If not, I will move.
I can say when you talked about your CTF side, is there any particular aspects of the CTF that you want to beef up?
Really just more CTFs, and then walkthroughs too. So that's one, like I have some walkthroughs on there, but you know, a lot of times it'll be like a magnet forensic CTF, and then like 10 different people will put out their walkthrough. You know, I'd really like to aggregate that. So, you know, people looking for solutions, they have a one-stop shop for it.
Okay.
So if there are any CTFs that are missing, you know, let me know. Fill it out on the form there. Submit Yep, right there, site feedback. Send it my way. We'll add it. It's for the benefit of the community. So
Yeah. Shall be doing that.
I appreciate it. And there's a lot of other areas here. So I'm not going to go over all of them in the interest of time. But feel free to take a look around. It's totally free site, no ads. We pay for it out of pocket. It's just for the community. So, any other questions about DFIR?
No, just thanks for all the work you guys do. It's an awesome resource.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I got one more resource. I'm involved in one more. So I am the administrator for the Digital Forensics Discord server. If you have not heard of that before, we have, I believe, just short of 6,000 people, I think, in it. We started it back in March of 2018. It started out as a IRC channel, actually, for just mobile forensics. There's about 10 of us. We eventually migrated to Discord. I remember it was because I got sick of uploading pictures to Imgur to then, post in IRC. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So we went to Discord. Started out as mostly just cops. Still a lot of cops there today, but now it's been branched out to private sector. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with like some of the major vendors in the digital forensic field. Your Magnet Forensics, Cellbrite, there's a ton. MSAB, Oxygen, all those vendors, they're all present and they're active, and people are posting issues they have with X device, Y device. And there's just the collaboration between law enforcement, private sector, the vendors. It's unprecedented. So it's a pretty awesome resource. It's lively, Monday through Friday mostly, because weekends. But it's an awesome resource. I highly recommend you join if you have any interest in digital forensics. It's mostly digital forensics focused, but I've added incident response channels, and I'll quick give you a tour. So if you were to join, this is what you would, and this is where a lot of people fail, so that's why I want to go over this. When you join, this is all you'll see. You'll see just a rules channel that you can't post in. You'll see a README channel that you can't post in, and then you'll see a role assignment blank channel here. What you need to do is you're supposed to read the rules, you're supposed to read the README, and what that would tell you is that you need to say, hey, I work in the private sector, or hey, I work for law enforcement, in the US. What would happen is when you say, I work in the private sector, we'll just do that, okay? Now what'll happen, and I want you to watch this left column here where the channels are, okay, in case you're not familiar with Discord. On my admin one, I'm going to private sector. So I just assigned a role to my little test account here. So now I have access to all the channels that the server has to provide. Now I've automated a lot of the most important resources through feeds. So every time 13Q posts a video, here you go, and you can see all the ones he's posted since I added him here. Every single post that I make and about DFR and everyone else who contributes to it, Mary, you'll see it here. Magnet Forensics does catch up. You'll see that every time that goes live. Same with Cellbrite, same with Oxygen Forensics, the Forensic Lunch, every time they go live. That's Cellbrite, SANS, both SANS YouTube channels push here. And This Week in Forensics, this is probably the most important one. If you guys are interested in forensics, highly recommend that you subscribe to this. If no one has ever seen it before, I will just quick show you. Is anyone not familiar with this, I guess?
I'll just say that I'm a big fan of this as well.
Have you actually used it before, or is this seeing it for the first time?
I've been reading it for a while now.
Okay, so yeah, it's great. It does all the dirty work for you. You just need to subscribe to this, and every Sunday, just go through, read about threat intelligence, forensic analysis, all these articles, malware, what stuff got updated this past week. That's really important. X-ways. So very, very, very valuable. Or you could just hang out in the Discord server, and it's right there every Sunday. and there's general channel, there's mobile forensics, extractions, decoding, there's training. If you're looking for a job, if you're asking questions about some sort of education program or training, you can ask here. People give you feedback. Computer forensics, got network forensics, DVR forensics, incident response. So a lot of private sector typically hang out here naturally. Memory forensics, if you're interested in memory forensics, here you go. Got a bunch of other people that do it too. Just everything, data recovery, OSINT, password encryption, password cracking, CTFs. If you like CTFs, here you go. Here's a bunch of other people, mostly students. And of course, off-duty, because you got to have the off-duty chat. But this is basically the digital forensics Discord server. It's blown up. It's been accepted by the community, and it's been an awesome thing to be a part of and watch grow over the last 2.5 years. So, does anyone have any questions about Discord, about DFIR, Timeline Explorer, CAPE, Life, Sports?
No, but they're also all of those are incredible resources. So if anyone's jumping into incident response or is trying to find an answer to some artifact or how to solve something, these are all fantastic resources to have, like bookmarks somewhere that you can jump into. And the Discord channel is fantastic. It has a lot of people. And like you were saying, like the fact that you can easily reach out to some of these vendors and talk to them about issues that you may be having or some oddities that you run into, it helps the vendor and it helps you solve your problem usually. So it's been...
And everyone else later on who searches for it 6 months down the road.
Yep. Yeah, definitely an awesome resource for sure.
The one anecdote I'll give about the Discord server is there's law enforcement from like 45 different countries. I mean, there's like Moldova. If you look that up, like there's someone who's a cop in Moldova, who is Moldova or whatever it is. But one in particular stands out. I believe it was a he, but he joined. He's like, hey, I work in Alaska. The nearest anybody to me in this field is like 3+ hours away, and I am all by myself. He's like, this server has been a lifesaver because now I'm connected to, at the time, it was like 2,000 people. But that's kind of what I'm proud of that. That's very cool. To have all these people, all this knowledge at your disposal. It's the same thing with the Slack, the MiSec Slack. I didn't even know there were 800 people, in Michigan that, did this stuff or cared about this stuff. So that's amazing. That's relatively new to me and, very, very cool. So the internet's amazing in summary.
It usually is. Usually,
it can be used for evil and is often used for evil. But you know what I mean. In this context, the internet's amazing. So I think that's about all I have. Does anyone have any questions? All right.
Well, if there's no further questions, I want to say a big thank you to Andrew. That was all very interesting stuff to learn about. I personally appreciate all the harping on Discord because I'm going to get to hear about that from my fellow MiSec leaders who've been talking about transitioning to Discord.
We've been hemming and hawing.
You guys have any questions about being an administrator? Been doing it for almost 2 years now, so
right.
More than happy to.
What you built there is very very cool, very fascinating. That's definitely a huge community, and that's pretty awesome. So with that said, thank you very much, Andrew, for being with us tonight and for putting on this presentation. I definitely learned a couple of things myself about all this stuff, and I will go and end the recording now. So give me a moment.